Well, hello everyone and welcome to Cuppa.tv. It is International Women's Day coming up this weekend and we have got a cracking show planned with the incredible Bronnie Mackintosh. You're going to fall in love with this conversation today. There's something about Bronnie that makes you want to, I don't know, give her a hug or something like that. But anyway, we're going to have such a great and compelling conversation in the lead up to International Women's Day. But before I kick it off, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connections to lands, water and community. I pay my respects to them and to their cultures and to the elders, both past, present and emerging. I always want to say thanks to the First Nations wisdom and storytelling that they've been able to provide here at Cuppa. It's a learning journey we should always be on. International Women's Day is coming up and the theme this year is around March Forward. When I was sitting back and having a think about who I wanted in for today's conversation, Bronnie came top of mind. Bronnie is a trailblazing leader in the Fire and Rescue New South Wales and a champion of gender equality in the emergency services. She's a founder and advocate and CEO of Girls on Fire, which is empowering young women through firefighting and leadership programs. She was an elite athlete back in the day, international rugby player representing Australia as a Wallaroo, and a change maker as well. She's passionate about breaking barriers, building resilience, and inspiring the next generation of female leaders. Let's bring Bronnie in right now. Bronnie, welcome to Cuppa. How are you?
Hello, Cookie. I am well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Bronnie. It's been a little while since you've appeared in these beautiful walls of Cuppa, but every time you and I have had a conversation, it's been an incredible moment where we can openly share about, you know, the good times, but also some of the challenges that you've gone through as well. And today we'll do exactly that. Bronnie, are you ready for today's conversation?
I am ready. I was thinking just as you were saying that, Cookie, it's about birds of a feather. And when you say every conversation that we have, we leave a little bit more inspired, a little bit more reinvigorated to take on the next change piece. So thank you. And thanks for having me back on the show.
I know. It's so good. And hopefully not the last time either, because we see so much value in what you do, especially with Girls on Fire, which we'll get to later on. Let's start with the first question, though. The first question is all around the theme this year, and that's around March Forward. So what does this year's International Women's Day theme mean to you?
So look, marching forward, when I think about that, I think it's all about movement and taking action, because you can't have a movement unless you're moving your body. And any change piece that has happened throughout history to change anything in society has come because people moved their bodies, they moved their lips, they rallied people together, they marched, they walked, they protested, they got visible. So that's what it means to me is this year, we're seeing that some of our numbers and some of our metrics by which we're judging our success of diversity and inclusion and women's visibility, they've plateaued. In some parts, they've really stagnated. And in other parts, such as retention and promotion, particularly in male-dominant industries, they're often declining. So I think we need to keep taking action and just be providing more people with more ways that they can take action to help this whole theme of marching forward, generating the momentum, rising above the sort of global backlash that is happening, that's been led by other world superpowers as to what's normal. And so I think it's really incumbent on us this year with this theme to take more action, to create more visibility and generate the momentum of why this is not just we've ticked that box, we're good. This is a life ongoing social change piece.
You've nailed it in the intro there, my friend, because it has been a very testing time in gender equality in the DE&I space in general. Mm-hmm. We recently did a conversation around, you know, the impact of the inclusion in the crossfire, I suppose it is, because of these actions that are being taken place globally. And like you said, the plateau and the decrease in numbers is something that is leaving many, and women in particular, obviously, very frustrated. And I've even heard comments of, I don't even know if I want to be celebrating International Women's Day because of, you know, what is happening to us globally. Mm-hmm. So many powerful moments. And I suppose I just want to stop here for a second, Bronnie, and I know we're getting deep already, but I think we need to. Why do you think that is the case? Is it because of the global force that we're seeing, or do you think it's a fatigue factor that we've been speaking about it for so long, but nothing's really changed?
I think it's two things. I think partially it's just the world order that operates in a type of pendulum that swings from one side to the other and then corrects itself and swings back. But I also think that often the conversation and the change pieces, they've been so directed and benefiting the target groups, it hasn't had enough breadth to become everyone's problem or everyone's opportunity to be part of the solution. And so, for example, civil rights for the African American people, it was, it's focused on that demographic. Women's rights focused on the women, and the same for each of your diversity demographic. And this is just in my headspace from what I can see. So unless we can really get a whole of population response to understand that it's not just to give equity to that target diversity group, it's actually for all of us as our human rights and our inclusion and our belonging to make this world sustainable for us all to keep belonging in it. And so I think the conversation probably needs to pivot in that way, and looking back on history to see what happened, say, for example, in the German times in the Holocaust, that when a superpower or global power or a fanatic focuses on one really vulnerable group, other people go, oh, it's not affecting me. I won't say anything. I won't put my hand up. I won't stand up for that, because they then accidentally or intentionally, sadly, are complicit in that brutality onto that vulnerable group or that diversity metric. And so then by the time they come after everyone else or the next part of brutality for those people, well, you've already succumbed to it. You've already kind of agreed with that treatment. And so you lose your power base to then challenge it when it is on your doorstep. And so I think, since we are going deep, I think the conversation and why it's important to be having more movement and more activation, but making it everyone's problem to resolve, because it's not just about what's changing for women or for African Americans or for trans people around the world with these decisions. Those are just the first gateways that if we're complicit to and think, oh, well, this is, it's not affecting us yet, then we're in for a big human disaster, because that's what history has told us what these people will do, and it can happen again. So I think there's a bit of that just natural world order, pendulum swings left, right, balances out, goes extreme, rebalances. But more than that, it's the divisive leadership has put people against each other, where they feel like, I'm not going to say anything. It's not affecting me. I'm on this side. And that is totally counter to human inclusion for all of us to be belonging and saving our planet.
Bronnie, you've just nailed the recent conversation that we had, because sometimes, and I think this is where it's got to as well, and you've said it yourself, is that sometimes when we push too hard, there's always going to be that resistance to push back, right? And that leads to conflict in whatever way, shape, or form. I find it just so interesting that our body and our DNA is 99.9% exactly the same, and yet this 0.1% is we're forgetting what it means just to be human, in just making sure that things are fair, to make sure that our opinions are only given if they've been asked for, instead of always just looking at that and asking more questions around, the person in front of you and wanting to learn their story and their journey. Because that's what we fundamentally have been around. That's what First Nations wisdom is all about for 60,000 years, is about just getting to know people and their story, without passing that judgment in any sort of way. And unfortunately, there is this moment right now of a freedom for an excuse, because because it's been driven by the top down of those leaders that, are making decisions, then there is a lot more DE&I budgets that are being pulled from organizations because they just think it's naturally okay to do that now.
Yeah.
So I think, from today's conversation, what I really want to focus on, Bronnie, is the power of the individual to make the change, like you did in your forging of your career. And so let's bring it back to the start and of your journey. What inspired you to step into the firefighting, a traditionally, male-dominated space?
I was inspired by the great job that I heard it to be and the lifestyle that a firefighter has because of the roster and the conditions. And I didn't grow up playing with fire engines thinking, oh, I've got to be a firefighter one day. I was always attracted to service fields, the ambulance. For most of my senior years at high school, I thought I wanted to be a police officer because I had really positive engagements with the police constables at the PCYC club where I used to go and do sports and hang out. And it wasn't until then later in life, after meeting some firefighters and it being pitched to me as a good job that would fit in with my interests and my sporting commitments, that I really was able to discover what a great job it is. So I was a late starter into the fire brigade. I was 32. I had worked in other fields like journalism. I had been doing like health kind of stuff, corporate health. And so it just sort of combined my natural character traits, I guess, with then the physical, working outdoors, being in quite a diverse environment, which was, as I've now reflected on, is really good for my undiagnosed ADHD to have lots of different things to do. I have a really strong team ethos. So the fact that we are just these little teams that go around and solve problems really appealed to the way I like to work, and the immense satisfaction of making a difference for people on sometimes their worst day is a buzz and a high and a satisfaction that I don't think I could get doing anything else.
Yeah, beautiful narrative there, Bronnie, around, the reasons why. No doubt you experience many barriers, though, in that journey that you may have faced as a woman inside, because you were only one of a handful at the stage, weren't you? And how did you overcome them?
I was the 13th woman at Fire and Rescue New South Wales, and at that time there was 3,000 permanent firefighters. So it was sort of early days, and there's now like good couple of hundred. We're still less than 10% of our permanent workforce are female, and there's very few officers. I'm now a station officer. So there were some barriers, but mostly just social barriers. I was very fortunate in that my pathway within the organisation was around people who were already used to seeing strong, fit women achieve in sport. So that metaphor across helped my pathway, certainly. I was already playing on the national women's rugby team, and so I just transferred all of that in myself into my job, and certainly had a lot of respect and team-based rapport that came as a result of that. Going into other areas, there was definitely some backlash. People were still not used to that women were firefighters, but by and large, people were positive about the fact that there's female firefighters. And but I did find that it has taken a big change in community perceptions or social perceptions about what the role of a firefighter is. And therefore, that has helped them understand that actually, that makes sense to have a diverse team of firefighters, given the nature of the job of a firefighter is not just running crazily into a full burning building and trying to put it out. Helping our communities understand the diverse nature of the role, that we actually don't do that. We don't just run into burning buildings and carry somebody out on our shoulders. That never happens. It's a myth. And so what I have really realized is the importance of educating community so that they know that we could be turning up to help their elderly grandmother off the floor who's had a fall and no one's been able to get to her for a couple of days, and we're providing medical assistance. We're turning up to car accidents where there's no fire involved whatsoever, but we're applying our team-based problem-solving skills to help those people out of that car. We're working alongside other emergency services. We're dealing with floods. We're dealing with storm and tempest. So I think communities just for a long time felt that it was that dangerous, run into a burning building, and therefore only men and big white men even could do that job. So dismantling the stereotype, educating the communities about what it is that our role consists of, that has certainly helped. But even with that, there's been some really great stories of backlash from men in my organization who just flat out told me to my face, you only got this job because you're a woman, or worse, on social media, trashing you with that gendered-based ignorant perception. So yes, there is that. Got some great stories from it and great material for speaking gigs along the way. And slowly but surely, those people are becoming the minority within the operations of the organization. But as we see globally, there's still a sentiment that is still reinforcing that outdated ideology.
Yep. Just when you think it's petering away, it just resurfaces once again. And I just want to touch down on the elements that you're talking about the team dynamics and how each individual serves a place in that team with their different skill sets, and diversity is key for that, because you might be better at communicating than a male might be to a person that's in need. And I know that's a gender stereotype as well, but you've got these different nuances at play that are needed to make a well-fit team do the job that they need to do. And that's the same in organizations. When you see boards with all men on there, or senior leadership teams with 80% men, you sort of question the mark of, like, what are we missing from the table, and what perspectives do we need? So, I would have thought, I would have hoped, Bronnie, since our last chat, that it would have been over 10% of women in the fire force. I know it's grown a lot, which is amazing. But what do you think is still holding it back at the moment for those numbers to increase?
Well, it's a good point that you raised there, because it's the value proposition of diverse teams, which you and I both just love and will advocate for forever. More diversity, more scope for solving a bigger range of problems. And I think when we last spoke, I spoke really proudly about our very progressive former commissioner who implemented a recruitment tool called gender parity to make sure that every recruit class coming through had 50% women on it. Now, that was not to get to 50% women in the whole organization, but you're going to take a 200-year process of getting to 15% women and speed it up to maybe a 10-year process. So we did that for a few years. We had 50-50. We missed the marks on some of the communication to help our culture, our change-resistant culture, to understand the process and where it was we were trying to get to and why. And we also missed the mark on the really support mechanisms needed to make sure that you had the numbers coming through the recruitment pool to even be able to have 50% passing all the criteria, because we still were making sure that those 50% met all of the selection criteria and passing the things, which was happening. But the backlash was so massive from the workforce, from communities, back to that same myth. Why just have women? How are they going to pull a man out of a burning building? The backlash was so huge that the organization backpedaled and took away that proactive equity adjustment mechanism. And I've seen, we just had a photo someone sent me the other day of all our new ladder drivers for the big aerial appliances.
Yes.
The community call them cherry pickers, but they're an aerial appliance. and there's 20 new trained up people on these fantastic technologically advanced appliances, all older white men, maybe not all older, but all men. So of course that's going to happen, because the criteria to even get onto that course is not enabling for that diversity to filter through. And these are the sorts of unintended consequences that happen, and succumbing to that backlash instead of actually working harder to educate people more, to just help the culture make that change. We just backflipped, and now I've seen recruit classes come through that are still all men. And that's not to say all those men don't do a great job.
No,
absolutely, no one's saying that. But so big missed opportunities there, and I'm not sure how we're going to get that back, but I have no doubt that that's why we are struggling to get women who want to promote in our organization to become leaders. I personally have had a lot of backlash when I did the TED Talk, where I challenged the community's assumptions about the diverse role of a firefighter. I got so many keyboard warrior haters on social media that not only was it pretty icky for me, but what it did worse than that was send a clear message to every other woman in the organization. Don't put your head up, just fit in, keep your head down. And so we don't have, they're ringing all the time. How can we get women to want to promote? It's not rocket science. So sorry, I'm quite passionate about these gaps that the organizations like my own have really missed to help address that. So,
and I think when it comes to those pushback moments, that's when real leadership steps up, where you go, no, this is the way that we're going to do it. Because too often we want to get things perfect, but we should be focusing on progress versus perfection. Like, we don't have to get it right, but we need to make it fair. We need to make the opportunities fair, so everyone feels A, safe in the organization that they're in, B, has the opportunity to prove themselves, which, like you said, they still have to meet all the criteria to be a good firefighter. They have to, that wasn't just a step up just to say, no, you don't need to do all the tests.
It wasn't a free ticket. No.
Yeah. And if that's the case, if they can't prove themselves, fine, but give them a fair seat at the table and create those pathways in that allow that ability for people to actually understand what it's going to take. But at that moment, it's just disappointing that you just can't push through it. And just because if you did, people would quieten down. They just need to make this is what I was saying before. People just have an opinion for an opinion's sake without the right solutions to back it up. And this is not just your organization, Bronnie. This is organizations who could be 50-50 women to men, but still don't. And so this is an ongoing challenge. And, today we're not solving that. But what I want to stop on, though, is about that pathway generation. And what I love and why I love talking to you is just what you're doing for promoting firefighting to young women. You've got this incredible charity called Girls on Fire, which is taken an extra step since we last spoken to you as well. But what inspired you to create this? Was it that fact that you just want to get more young girls to understand the components of what it means to be a firefighter and what it can give you?
Yes, I wanted to reconcile the fact that if I knew as a teenager that this was the pathway for me, then I would have joined much earlier and could have had more change points to influence, promoted possibly, but just looking out now and seeing that, well, this is what should happen. Everyone should do what they want to do. And young women don't know about being firefighters because they're not conditioned in the same way that young boys are for it to be a pathway. And, it might not biologically happen for them. I mean, we see young boys, little boys like less than 2, be completely besotted with the fire truck. So I don't know if that's nature or nurture, and definitely not all girls are instantly thinking about, the big trucks and all of this, but there's plenty of young girls and young women like I was, where this type of job would actually be perfect for their skill set And so Girls on Fire just came out of recognizing that gap. My real respect for young people being able to do, and young women being able to do what they want to do and feel empowered and have the courage and confidence to go against the norm or their conditioned ways. Because I think mental health wise, that's what everyone needs. Everyone needs to know that there's the road most traveled and there's the road less traveled. And we, as the functioning adults, need to be able to support young people on both those roads. And after doing the Churchill Fellowship in 2016, where I had a good look around the world at how other fire services were addressing their lack of diversity, it was so conspicuous to me that the change piece needed to be twofold: educating the young women that this was a pathway for them and a really meaningful career that could set them up, but also that if we didn't change communities' perceptions, then that's just going to make it harder for any diversity to join into a service that was built on the traditional British white, military sort of hierarchical model, which is fine for command and control at incidents, but it's not always well-serving in terms of providing better safety outcomes by reflecting our diverse communities, by having more inclusive workplaces in which everyone feels like they belong and they can thrive and contribute their whole selves. And it also, it's getting in the way of those just public safety outcomes where we can do more to keep our communities safe because we are diverse and we can solve a bigger range of problems, and we're involved and we're connected with those communities in the prevention and preparedness phases, not just turning up on a truck for a response effort. So that's how I kind of arrived at Girls on Fire, was to address those two ways to bring about this change.
And what do the girls go through during the program? And what do they learn? Like, what are some of the key things that you focus on?
First of all, the girls learn the importance of confidence and stepping forward and trusting themselves. And we do that through a whole metaphor training program based on experiential learning, in which the teenage girls, who are mostly between 14 and 19 years of age, they learn all of the aspects of being a firefighter or being an emergency first responder, because we're across all the fire and emergency services. It's just that fire and gender was our primary gateways. So the young person on either a one-day program, or now we're starting a one-day-a-week school-based apprenticeship type program, they'll do everything from wearing all of the firefighting ensemble and the different personal protective clothing for the different risks and hazards they're working in. They'll learn how to make fire, sometimes with a cultural lens and traditional uses of fire and traditional land management that we're learning on the way from First Nations people. They'll learn how to put those fires out, different extinguishing agents. They'll learn scenarios, so managing incidents. They'll do basic first aid and CPR. They'll do some road crash rescue. So there we have them on the big hydraulic rescue tools, cutting people out of a vehicle and understanding all that. Nothing better for road safety information than putting a young person into that situation and locking in that they do not want to be on that side of the tool or the car. Depending on our location, we'll sometimes take them up in an aerial firefighting appliance so they get to see the range of equipment and tools that we have. We do floodwater rescue, so they learn how to throw a throw bag line in where they would do a land-based rescue. We also partner, because we've got National Parks and Forestry Corporation. They learn about maintaining our national parks, the importance of forestry as an industry. They all have firefighters, so we learn the stuff that they learn about how they would protect cultural sites, villages. They operate hose lines, and we try to always pull it together in some kind of response scenario in the truck, responding to an incident and testing what they've learned about team-based problem solving, and then applying those skills, knowledge and capabilities they've gotten to work together in a team and resolve that issue that we've created for them.
I find it absolutely amazing, Bronnie, that, teenage girls can actually go through that process. Like, I'm a dad to 2 young daughters, and it is my responsibility as a dad to also forge the way for women in the future. And that's definitely the thing that I look at now is, every conversation, every opportunity, like, what can we do that's better? And so I love the fact that from the flip side of this, all the ability to be able to show women confidence and tackling these life and death potential situations that they may experience is such a great grounding for them. What's some of the feedback that you get from it though, Bronnie? And what type of success have you seen that makes you smile?
We get feedback from the parents as well as the young person where, and we collect a lot of data on this kind of stuff as well. The young people always say because one of the key things we want to measure is, do they feel more prepared of what to do in emergency? So we can walk away knowing they know where their defib is, they know what the process is, calling 000. So we get that immediate feedback that they've already feel more confident to act in an emergency and know what to do. We get feedback from parents saying that their daughter really was awkward or suffering some social anxieties until that day, and just within a program, they've got more confidence. They're speaking to other people. So we get that sort of feedback from the organizations that are our collaborating partners. We get a lot of feedback that their staff who they've enabled to come on the program as mentors or activity facilitators, that they're more engaged in their work because they've had a big boost and feel inspired that they've been able to give back to community or inspire young women. And it's given them a renewed interest and passion for what job that they do. They see it through a different lens. And then, of course, we get the really great feedback. We had a cultural inclusion program down in Gippsland in Victoria, and 2 of the girls on that program, they're all First Nations girls, 2 of the girls ended up with jobs 2 months later as project firefighters in DECA, the Department of Environment, Energy and Climate Action in Victoria. So, you're transforming somebody's whole trajectory in life if they're coming out of it with confidence that's transferable to anything else, courage, emergency response stuff, all those tangible skills. And then if they end up with a job or some building blocks towards a job, that's the real stuff that makes me smile and just keep going, keep running more programs.
Yeah, I got little shivers then, because it is right. When you can see that progress where they've taken that confidence and now entering into firefighting or other emergency services, because let's be honest and frank here, like, without the emergency services, like, we need more people and backing more people in this area. So absolutely brilliant to hear that, Bronnie. We're getting close to the time, so I want to just ask you just a couple more questions, and let's get back to the theme of March Forward. What's the one thing every person who's watching today or watching this replay can do more to create that inclusive future for us all?
I think every person needs to know that they can do something. And it starts with self. So having more of an inclusive mindset yourself. If you've got children and young people, or you're a coach or an influencer in that way of young people, then really upskilling yourself and reflecting on the ways in which you show up with an inclusive mindset, because there's a lot of nuances in your language and your judgments and biases that you could maybe adapt and change, because I think every single person can reflect and remember a time where they felt they didn't belong, that they were new to a group or first to a school or in an environment, and that feeling that you had then of your reptilian brain going, I'm not okay, I'm not okay. If everyone can just do that and remember what that's like and take some actions, so that when they're in a setting or they're in a majority, be it a group, a team, a workplace, to make the newcomer or the other or the different feel really included or that they belong, and really try to reconcile the true value proposition of that diversity. and not just think, oh, well, this is the norm. It's the richness of the otherness that brings the lens of inclusiveness. And, you know, it's proven there's not normal anymore. That's like, that's not even one cycle on a washing machine anymore.
No.
So find out and be a parent or a teacher or an educator that encourages otherness, the other parts of ourselves that aren't just one narrow band of normality that no longer exists, because not only is that boring, but it's also not equipped for the world and the complex problems that we're all going to face. So we need to band together with our diversity traits that we all have, our otherness, and pull together on our human levels so that we can influence policy, change laws, elect leaders that are valuing all of our contributions, so that we actually can not have the planet as we know it end with my generation or our kids' generation.
I can't say anything more than that, Bronnie. It's absolutely beautiful, you know, and the only thing I would state is it took me a long time to realize that, but you can change it. You know, it took me 39 years to sit down with a First Nations person, to sit down with someone that was transgender, to sit down with someone that was quadriplegic. They weren't in my circles. They weren't in what I classified as my normal. And my biggest growth has happened because of the conversations that I've had with people that are different from me. Some of my best friends now are transgender. Some of my best friends are First Nations. Some of my best friends are quadriplegics. It's a worldly change, but you have to look at yourself first, like you said, Bronnie, and tackle those unconscious biases. Because if you've got an opinion, again, park it until you understand that person's story and evolve and ask more questions and be curious. That's when we change.
And exactly what you said, Cookie, as a change lever, white men like you, and you said, you know, you've got daughters. It wasn't until you've met these diverse people that you've realized the richness and then changed yourself. White men with daughters that can lead allyship. They're a really important part of the next phase of the change piece, I think, because they want the world to be better for their daughters. They're man enough to challenge the assumptions they've been living their life with, and they're all these unconscious and conscious biases. So well done, you. I love white male allyship. I think it's a really easy part to start this march forward on International Women's Day.
Bronnie, another cracking conversation. We're going to do this at least once every couple of months.
We'll never get anything else done.
Yeah, I know, but that's okay as long as you and I are happy. I really do appreciate it. Where can people find out more about Girls on Fire?
Best way is just our website, which is www.girlsonfire.org.au. On our events tab, if you click on that takes you to all the programs that are live and taking registrations at the moment. We work on the whole belonging and inclusion philosophy. So we want anybody to come and volunteer on our program. If you care about young people, if you care about connected communities and social cohesion, then we want you on a program too. So jump on, find an event that suits you and register as a volunteer. Same for the participants, schools, careers advisors. We love having the problem of trying to fit everyone into something where they can make their difference.
Absolutely beautiful. And if you want to get in contact with Bronnie directly as well, please reach out to us at Cuppa and we'll make some magical moments happen like we have done recently with a few of our clients. So let's get this conversation out there. These are the conversations that can move people. And Bronnie, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Cookie, and happy International Women's Week and Year for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for a Cuppa today. Hopefully you found that session powerful like I did. Please do share the replay with others. Share it with the leaders in your team, the male, female, doesn't really matter. Let's just get the conversation out there again. We can't let the recent impact on inclusion and DE&I stop us in our quest for gender equality. So please make sure that you do that. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of Cuppa today. It's been an absolute privilege to hold space around this important conversation. Make sure you check out our show calendar to see all the other incredible shows that we have coming up for March, April, and May. Talk to you soon. Bye.